Why saying I'm just a girl diminishes the female gender. Okay, so this may truly be a hot take. I found that out when I posted a short form video about this a few months ago, and people were mad offended about it. So, let me explain clearly why I feel this way. There's a few different reasons. For one, it gives your own power away. Two, it groups all women into one system. And lastly, it reinforces existing stereotypes created by the patriarchy about women. To start, let's focus on what exactly the phrase "I'm just a girl" means and does in a conversation. It means, I am only a woman. How you may interpret that is up to you. What does it do in conversation? Well, it can be used in a multitude of different ways. You can use it to say you don't want to do something, like move a stack of chairs, or to excuse a behavior that you have just presented, such as yelling at your partner. It's also just so general that it can be used for pretty much anything, with the underlying meaning changing for each thing. It's almost like a nicer way to say no in certain situations, which is interesting because it raises the question, why can't we just say no? If you don't want to move a stack of chairs, you can just say, I don't want to move the stack of chairs, right? Instead of essentially making an excuse that alienates your entire gender. But we'll get to that. Before I fully shit on this phrase, I want to recognize why it's used and how it uses the patriarchy to a woman's advantage. So, as we all know, the world that we live in was built by men and for men. And while things may be changing for the better, with women being able to vote, have jobs, and make a living without a husband, which these are all things that, of course, we should be able to do, but besides the point, there are still some things that remain. Sexist microaggressions and subtle negative ways of treating women slide by on a daily basis, and this is misogyny at play. Oftentimes, sexism shows up within power dynamics, like at the workplace or with an abusive partner. I mean, I'm sure you've heard some guy talk about a girl as his bitch at some point or another, or watch a girl who was working somewhere longer than everyone else be surpassed in promotions by men who were there much shorter. I also want to make it clear that trans women are very much included in what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a girl, just because, might not be born one type of way or another doesn't mean that you don't deal with the same struggles of sexism when you transition. I also want to say that I know that I'm speaking very binary with gender right now, but all genders are part of this. If right now the world is still changing to be more accepting, and I'm hoping that in that change, hopefully sexism will kind of start to trickle down the cracks, and not trickle down in the way that it spreads longer, but it always will. But besides the point, whatever, things can change. But this kind of applies to the old world that's been existing and is still existing in certain areas, even as we change our world. These are still problems that we do deal with, It can be hard to fight these microaggressions because men who do participate in misogyny will oftentimes deny it, and why waste your time debating a man who doesn't respect you in the first place? If you're not respected, you will not be heard. So some women have created another way to fight misogyny by weaponizing it. They'll think, if a man is sexist, why not use it to my advantage, right? If they think I can't do anything, well, I'm going to say I'm just a girl because it reinforces their own existing beliefs. That I am incapable because I'm a woman, and now I don't have to do manual labor. Or to say I'm just a girl to your friend who you just yelled at to excuse your attitude because patriarchal society sees women as emotionally reactive and hysterical anyways, right? So why not reinforce that stereotype and excuse my behavior for something that society says that I'm going to do no matter what? Well, I understand that reason, and I honestly empathize because I've experienced sexism throughout my own life. And though in the past I think I used to try to just say, I'm going to get ripped at the gym, I'm going to be buff so that no one can bother me, I kind of just thought I would start to be respected over time, but it doesn't really change with some people. But I don't think fighting fire with complacency is the answer to the problem. At the beginning of the video, I said that using this phrase gives away your power. What do I mean by that? Well, it's pretty on the nose. When you say the words, I'm just a girl, emphasis on just, you are implying that the reason why you can't or won't do something is because of your gender, not because of your will. This is harmful. It's harmful because it groups all women into the same subsection that you have just created, where you supposedly can't do something because If the reason why you can't do this thing is because of your gender, then you're implying that all women can't do this thing. It reinforces what sexist people already think. If we want to change the world, compliance is not the answer. We need to fight the system and change the way women are viewed by existing strongly in our decisions. If you don't want to do something, you should say, I don't want to do that, and leave it at that. I know that as women, we are taught to be kind and submissive all the time, and I feel you. I apologize for a lot of things that I don't need to apologize for, and I'm just now finally beginning to learn how to speak up for myself without feeling guilty for it. It's hard because it's ingrained, but if we want to enact change, we need to unlearn those habits, unlearn those patterns. And it might feel unfair, like, why do I have to do extra work to be respected? And you know what? It is unfair. That's the world right now. That is the patriarchy at work. That is misogyny at work. The only way to change that system, to make it better for our daughters and our own futures, is to fight now by accepting the sexism and using it to our advantage with a phrase like, I'm just a girl. You are no better than someone who says, boys will be boys. This phrase is often used to excuse men from sexual misconduct and harming women. We all know at this point that boys will be boys is a toxic phrase, but I'm just a girl is essentially the female version of it. It is excusing your own behavior or making an excuse in general on the basis of gender, not will. Both phrases imply that the person doesn't have control over what they do or what they can do because of their gender. Boys can't help it, and girls can't. At the end of the day, I want to be clear that I'm not the language police, and I think that one of the few beauties left in America, if that's where you're watching from, is the freedom of speech. So use your language and your speech however you want. You have the right to, as of right now. I genuinely don't get upset when I hear I'm just a girl being thrown around. I'm just very aware of the deeper meaning of the phrase and refrain from using it myself because I do not want to diminish my own capabilities. I truly believe that words hold power, and what you say about yourself will eventually become belief about yourself. So I think that it is very worth it to understand fully and clearly what you are saying and what it actually means. I'm Cade.